Okay, so basically, before I start, I'm just going to apologise that I will be turning quite a lot down to my computer, just so that I can show you what I'm actually looking at. Alright, so now for the proper introduction. I'm going to be doing this video about my drafting page, because before we go there, I know at the moment it's not finished. I'm still setting it up and just organising it. That's all going to get done. But for now, pretty much all of the basic is there, except for a few little things which I forgot and I've left them on the school computer. But as soon as the holiday's over, I'm going to be getting them off the computer. Anyway, so first of all, on this page, as you can see here, I have 4 images, which are under my front cover title. So I had a little bit of a problem choosing my front cover. And these are the images. Sorry, that's my laptop doing a really weird thing. So these are the images which I could have chosen from. But, oh God, it stressed me out. Anyway, so basically these 4 images, I had edited them. I'd done all of that work and all of that faffing around and cutting them out. Anyway, it turns out I didn't actually use any of those 4. Typical, isn't it? Anyway, the reasons why I didn't use them was partly because I may have used one of the outfits elsewhere in the magazine and I didn't want to have the same outfit. Another one would have been that the hair wasn't quite right and I wasn't happy with how it was sitting. One which I really did like, which I'm circling right now, is I love that image, but I was playing around with the idea of the stool and getting other items in. I really like that idea. It was the wrong theme. It didn't really go with my magazine idea at all. Unlike all of the other 3, at least they were sort of along those lines, but that wasn't really. Anyway, moving on. So here I've got quite a large image of an unfinished front cover. This isn't my end front cover, but this was the final image which I decided on finally. Not that I'm annoyed. But anyway, this is the final image which I chose to actually use for my front cover. I was happy with it because I got across what I wanted, which was the eye contact. It was a little bit longer than a mid shot, but that's okay still. And I liked how she was looking over her shoulder because it's a little bit different, so it gets more attention really. One thing that I was playing around with, I just wrote the title on straight away and I put it in the font, which I've done for my other article titles. But looking upon this now, I don't think I like it. I don't think I like it. It doesn't give off the right impression for the magazine which I want to portray. So, logically, I've been thinking about other names for my magazine, which I could actually do. If I can find them. Okay, so as my magazine, I want to focus on hidden talents which my models have got, or something secret or something like that. So I'm thinking more of along the lines of concealed, conceal, screen, secret or hidden. I don't know why I put screen in there. Let's forget that one. But those 4 all portray the idea of something which isn't shown on first glance. So it's that whole metaphor of don't judge before you open a book and all of that stuff. That's what I want my magazine to sort of be like, so you can't just go, oh yeah, look, blah blah blah. I already know what this is going to be about. I want people to be picking up the magazine and go, what's this? It's a little bit different. Which is hopefully what we'll get. But we'll see. Although I haven't got the final thing on here, on the screenshots, I've got it at the very bottom, so I can just refer back to that. So here's the old one and here's the new one. We're going to go one by one. That'll be a lot easier. So if we start off with the old one. So first of all, what we can see is that I have decided to move over the image slightly since she's less centralised. I've done this for my final thing as well, so it was something which I carried on going with. This was just because I want the audience to be, imagine if you're looking over your shoulder, there's going to be some space, isn't there? So right here, if I move this, or move myself, you can see that I'm in this 1/3, and then there's about 2/3 here. I can't even get that right. There's about 2/3 there. So it draws your attention to that space there, even though I'm the actual thing. So it's that sort of idea which I wanted to do for the positioning and layout for my magazine. If we go to my final thing, as you can see from this smaller screenshot here, I changed it quite a lot by the end. So if I just go onto the big screen, here you can see that I haven't really touched the title because I thought that was too much faff. I have added a shadow because it just makes it a little less flat and it's a little bit more realistic. But you can see I have put a wider variety of fonts on just because it needed it. I think it still could do with some more. Like here, I think I've got 4 or 5 max, when I really need to be getting a lot more. When it comes to the taglines, I think it's a lot better font. It is more eye-catching than that swirly thing. Let's not go into that. I'm thinking that I may want to shuffle them about a little bit more so then they're not just in a list. A list is fine, but it's not very inventive. So we can adjust and move on from that. I think that the cell lines themselves are fine. They're short, and yeah, okay. I like the first one in particular because it's a little bit different. So the 10 is large and so is top, and then the rest of the sentence is a little bit smaller, but then it still drags the attention in. Another idea, which I'm taking from a few other magazines, such as Vogue, is that they relate fonts on different pages. So if I get one. So here's my example. Basically, you can see here that they've used the same font for their masthead as they have for their main cell line. This means that the audience knows what the important thing is about that. You can also see down the side that they've got alternating red and black, and they're also in different fonts. This again is just another really good technique to get the attention of the audience, which I'm definitely going to pay more attention to. One thing that I have another thing which I have noticed is that they've used rhetorical questions right there. That may be one thing which I could consider and think about doing, but we'll see about that. Anyway, finally, for the front cover, I'm thinking of changing this whitey, pinky background to black. This is purely because I think it looks quite professional and just looks a little bit better. If we look back onto my magazine now, as you can see here, I have put the name of my main article on here, but it doesn't really tell you much about it. Obviously you can tell that that is the girl on the page. but I think I need to write a little bit more about it, but we'll come to that. One thing that I have noticed in particular is that my date for my magazine, the price and the website are ridiculously small. I can't even, like, I have to zoom in super close to even be able to read how much it is, which just isn't a good thing. So I know that I'm going to have to increase them significantly. One thing that I am thinking about doing is rejigging it. So maybe having my website along the side of a word or something like that, just then it's a bit different. I feel so I'm really slating into that, but you have to. Anyway, moving on to the contents page. So if I go out of this, oh, that worked out quite well. If I go onto my content section on my drafting page, as you can see here, I have 3 screenshots so far. I think I have a few more at school which I need to put on. So basically, in this first screenshot, I didn't do one before, like at the very beginning. I got a few, but not a load. This was the first one on the page right now. Anyway, so as you can see here, I have got none of my own images on the page, which I thought was a massive issue. It just wasn't great, I'm not gonna lie. One thing which really bugged me, probably the most out of this whole page, was contents, actually writing the word. As you can see there, and on all of them, except for the bottom one, that's not good, it's that one, yeah. As you can see for these top 2, I've used the same font. There's something about it just doesn't seem right. I'm actually considering not writing anything about contents, or not even saying the word contents, because if we look on this one, God, I'm so slow. Yeah, you can see here, it doesn't say contents, which I think is actually a nice idea not to include it. If I'm honest, I don't think it's necessary at all. But why that took me so long brings me on to my next point, that it took me so long then to find the contents page is because most actual magazines include 6 or 7 pages, double pages of adverts. So if I just get one up, for example, this is all before the contents page. They will include double page spreads of adverts advertising different stuff in their magazine, which actually may be a nice idea to include. I may do this for 1 or 2 different things, just so then I can really relate it back to my designer feature bit on my contents page. I think that that might be a nice little touch. Anyway, going back to this. As you can see from this image, or this screenshot, moving on to the next one, you can see that I have started to include a few of my own images. This is because I found it I just thought it wasn't right. I have so many images, photos which I've taken, I thought it would be stupid not to include my own, especially how it would only take me a few minutes. Anyway, as you can already see, I was turning them into that off-coloured, low saturation thing, just then my main article can be that. I don't know the word. Anyway, I'll think of it eventually. Anyway, so that's all about the images. I was also playing around with the size of the images and whether I prefer them to be square, like proper pointy, if I prefer them to be a bit fuzzy, or round. Out of all 3 of those, I think I prefer the faded, but that's because it's on a white background. I think that if I do my alternating black and white image things, I'll probably go for the curved images, unless I'm overlapping them, which is a whole nother point Okay, this moves me on to my next thing. I have a horrible feeling that it's too perfectly laid out. Even on my final screenshot which I got, it's so perfectly laid out. There's nothing overlapping, everything perfectly fits, which makes me happy, but it doesn't look quite right. And I think that's what's a little bit wrong with them. As you can see on this final screenshot, I did change the contents. It's like the font itself. This was purely because it had gotten to me too much, and I thought, right, I need to spend a bit of time figuring out what is wrong with this. Although this is a better, I still think I'm going to go with the idea of not saying it at all. And if I do, I'll put it in the very top corner, quite small, not going to drag lots of attention. Because it's pretty obvious when you open a book and go, oh yeah, look, this is... Anyway, sorry, that's a little bit of a ranting point. Yeah, so I think that looking and reflecting on it now, I'm going to be brutally honest with myself, it is too perfectly laid out, and that I need to overlap the images a bit more and just be a bit more adventurous. I also think that my numbers need to be bigger. So none of them are really that eye-catching, except for number 62, but that's because it's on a white background. All the other ones I've done really subtly in the corners. 45 sort of stands out, but that's because I know it's there. I think they need to be a lot bigger, because on most magazines they're pretty big. So this moves me on. So I want my main article to be number 7, which you can see, well, where it is on the page, to be there. So this may mean that I will have to increase the number so that it covers half of her arm. It's not a great scenario, but it may have to happen because it needs to be big. I've also thought of quite a cool tagline thing for it. I'm thinking of 5 names to know now, or 5 designers to know now. I'm sort of playing around with that idea. But anyway, moving on. When I'm thinking about my images, I'm definitely going to overlap them. I have to overlap them. And that means that I can include some accessories and properly get into that fashion sense. I think that's about it. One thing before I forget, this purple box, which is on my final thing, that's not meant to be there. That is where I'm going to put the screenshot of my front cover. Purely because I wasn't happy with my front cover, I didn't want to put it on because I feel as though it would drag the rest of the page down. Anyway, so if I go on to this quickly, as you can see here, all the words, they're okay. I think the titles read pretty well in that font, but this font is a nightmare. It just is. It's a nightmare. I don't know why I picked it. Don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, so I'm going to change this to the font which I've used for the rest of my articles. But we'll come back to that. One other thing to add is that when I was looking through Vogue and Bazaar magazines, neither one of them had the editor's note actually on the contents page. I know that they're a proper magazine, but I think this is definitely something to consider and actually think about, because it's quite a big decision not to have it there. They have a whole separate page for it, with those pages before the contents page, just talking about all about the editor, which is quite nice, and it's on the notices bit. But we'll see about that. Moving on to my double page spreads. So the first one which I did was the one on Beryl, also known as Jenna Cooper. Okay, so as you can see on what I've written, or on these, Although it's not actually on there, I had another image which I was considering about Beryl. I actually did this for, at that time I had one article on Beryl, one on Becca, and one on my main article. And the plan was to do 2 pages on each of them, except for my main article, which I would have 3. This wasn't gonna happen because it would have distracted too much attention away from the main article and just wouldn't have been great. So I ditched that plan. Out of those 2 images, this was my favourite one. I just love how vivid that jumper is, and it matches her hair, and it looks really, really nice, I think. It's definitely one of my favourite ones. I also like how it goes across onto a double page, and then it's not just constricted onto a single. Anyway, so I like how I have managed to get the background across the whole of the double page spread. So this is my first black page, like with a black background, and I love it. I think it looks so good like that, and it catches a lot more attention. I think that although I'm happy with the overall thing, it's one of my favourite pages, I think I could have been a little bit more adventurous with my layout of everything. So by this I mean, for example, my masthead is in the conventional place. It doesn't have to be, it could have been down here on her jumper, or the pull quote could have been down here, or I think actually the pull quote should have been around here in this main bit. I did try at first to put it in here, but then it just didn't look right. Thinking about it now, it should have gone in just in that gap there, which would have made more sense. This was also a really good page for my, what's it called? Introductory paragraph. I had an actual mind blank then. Excluding that. Yeah, this had a really good introductory paragraph, which I'm very happy with actually. Yeah, I think it's okay that there's only one image because it goes across both the double pages, but it might have been interesting to have one image just so then it balances out that ratio of image to text. Just something to consider. One thing which does really get to me is how, if you can see here, the paragraphs, none of them are the same height. This isn't the end of the world, but it's a little bit upsetting. It's definitely something which I need to consider if I want to carry on, or if I just want to go, right, let's cut it and do it all again. But we'll think about that. My pull quote is very awkwardly on the end. I don't really know why I put it there, but we'll have to think about that. One thing which I really have noticed, it's similar to my issue, date and price and all of that stuff on my front cover. The website and page numbers on my pages, all of them, they're too small. Like, you can't even read them, which just isn't good. They need to be increased. So I think I had them on the font of 9. I think I'm going to try and increase it to 12. So then it's the same as my article. Maybe even one bigger. We'll come back to that. Overall though, I am very happy with that one. Very happy. And if I go on to the, where is it? The actual thing. I think that the font which I've used for the main article is fine. And I'm going to use that throughout all of them, just because it looks the best. Anyway, moving on. Also, before I forget, I like how I have the title including my thing as well, my colour scheme, which is always a good thing. Moving on now to my second double page spread. Okay, as you can see right now on this draft page, before I scroll down, it is an utter mess. There is stuff which doesn't really make sense at first, but it does at the same time. So currently I only have one image, but this was one of the ones which I was going to do a double page spread on, but then I decided against it. This was partly because the hair didn't look quite right. Like, it was this bit here which really got to me. I spent so long trying to edit it and change it and feather it. It just didn't end up looking right, and it really got to me at one point. So I left it. That's part of the reason why I didn't choose that one for my front cover as well. So that was a possibility. Anyway, moving on to my actual, in my magazine, my next double page is this one here, of the same girl, but it's just a slightly different angle. Again, I'm sticking to that idea of the offside direct address, which I think worked pretty well. I'm going crazy. Sorry. I think I tried to include a few more images by the end, and one thing which I really have noticed is that I need more. It's okay, but even on the layout without the text it looks odd because it needs more of them. Less big maybe, but it needs more and they need to overlap. I need to get used to that less structured idea. Again, I need to increase those numbers for on the pages because it's shockingly small. If I go onto the real thing again, you can see here that it's okay. I'm not even gonna lie, it's okay. It's a decent page. It's not that interesting or intriguing though, and I feel as though that's down to the fact that I haven't got anything overlapping, which is a little bit of an issue. If I just go onto the name tags, I have these for all of my articles. I have a little that I have their name just in the top corner. I love this idea, but I think that I'm going to have to put background on them because you can read Hazel, but then brown is a little bit fuzzy. But that's just because it's on a slightly strange background. Anyway, moving on from that, one thing which I do need to do is reposition where the pull quote is. So at the moment you can see that it is on her coat. This was a last minute thing because I sort of ran out of room and I didn't want to jig up all of the article, but in reality I should have stuck with my instincts and put it in the middle. I feel as though it would have broken up quite a long bit of text, which is quite intense, which isn't great if I'm honest. But anyway, I like how the masthead is in my colour scheme. Unlike on the previous page, I actually decided to go for the whole title to be in the colour scheme. I'm not sure if I prefer it or not, but it's there. We're dealing with it. Anyway, it's definitely something to think about and work on, but what are you gonna do? Then moving on to the next point, I'm happy with how much I wrote actually. Although it seemed quite a lot, I feel as though if I put a few pull quotes in, put the text more into her jumper as well, so if I decrease, so I'm going to show you now on here, if I decrease from here to about just above her, about in line with her chin actually, on the paper, and then I put my introductory paragraph there, and then I put my text over her jumper as well, I feel as though that would work a lot better. And then I can also alternate and it would work. I know it would. Anyway. I do like actually how there's one main image on this page. I don't know why, I just really like that idea. And I know that I am definitely going to stick with that idea, but it's just that I need to put other images in, which is fine. We can deal with that. And again, just the page numbers, they're way too small. It's not good. But yeah, I'm quite happy with that one. Moving on to the next double page, as you can see in my draft, I actually did take the screenshot when it was finished. I have the whole screenshot and screencast, of me making it and creating it, and I'll put that into my draft when we go back to school. But for now, it's not there. So we're just going to look at this final thing. So this is my favourite page out of all of them, straight up. That is purely because, as you can see, the title has a nice contrast, so it's not just my colour or it's not my colour scheme, but then I also have the white. There is a theme coming through here. I like the black pages the best. I think that's definitely something to think upon. Anyway, yeah, the black pages, they work really well. Even the one with Beryl, I'm very happy with actually. There's something about it. As I said before, it looks more professional really. But anyway, I think the masthead has nice contrast as well against the background, which is always good. My introductory paragraph works well. The sizing, and the position. I think it works really well. I'm glad that I didn't go over the double page for that bit, just because it's that purpley and I feel as though it would have got lost on the background. One thing which I have noticed is that one more thing on the introductory, I like how I've used the colour scheme. That's a really strong point, which I think actually, did I use that on Beryl's one as well? Yeah, I did. I used that one on Beryl's as well, and I feel as though it really worked. So that's definitely a good thing. My article is by far broken up the best on this page. That's because it's central. On the ones which I haven't got any pull quotes in the centre of them, they look too but then when I have them, say, dotted around, just two, it doesn't look quite right. So I feel as though you have to go for an odd number. That's what I want to do. So I'm either going to go for 1 or 3. I'm not going to go for 2. So I just don't like it, but we'll come back to that. Yeah, so it's broken up quite nicely on that one. The one thing which I don't like on this page is how the article overran onto the next page. It's how it was that much. If it was a little bit bigger or a little bit more, that would have been fine, to be honest. I could have dealt with that. But it's how it slightly overran. But what are you going to do? We'll live with it. I feel as though I was a little bit scared as well to cover up some of the image. The main image, by the way, I'm talking about now. It's one of my favourite photos which I've ever taken. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. But yeah, I feel as though that's another thing which I may need to think about. And while I'm adjusting it, I'm going to have to think, right, how can I defaff this, defuss it, de-waffle. I got there. How can I de-waffle it and just make it a bit more simple and everything like that, and yeah. I did on this page include a solid image, so I didn't feather the background or the edges or anything like that. I do quite like it actually. It works quite well against the background. Although the only thing is that I'm not keen on how the backgrounds don't match between those two images. But that's just a nitpick. I think also it'd be nice if I could get a collage of different images. So maybe one of the shoes or something like that. I feel as though that would work really nicely as well. Again, back to that name tag, it just needs a background. Like, it does stand out on its own, but I feel as though it needs that extra help to really, really stand out. Nothing too bad. As I said before, I don't actually think I said this before, I like the gradient, which I managed to get between the black and the purple. This was a little bit of a struggle at first, but I think actually it's worked pretty well and I'm actually quite happy about it. And I think another thing why I really like this one is that it's an interesting photo. As I said before, it's one of my favourite ones I've ever taken, but that's because of the shadows on the arm, on the face, on the neck. I really, really like that. So definitely something to play around with. And it's one of my favourite pages. Anyway, moving on to the next page. So this is when my main article finally starts. That's one thing which I may need to consider, is that I have other articles before my main article. I'm not sure if I've done that right or not. I may actually put one article in front, have my main article stuff, and then have one after. Just then it's... Anyway. First, straight off the bat, the pictures don't feel right. They're a massive part of this page and I feel as though they're just not right. The secondary image, you can tell sort of which one it is, the one which is landscape. It's too large, straight up. It's trying to take over the main image, which I'm not happy about. And no, we need to improve on that. I think that could be escaped or helped with a collage, which is okay actually. I really like how the article fits on this page. It looks really professional. It doesn't look overwhelming or overbearing. And the pull quote is perfectly positioned actually. I'm really happy with it. Really, really happy with it. That's one thing which I have noticed. I did play around quite a lot about where it should go, and it looks the best in the middle. That's why I'm going with the 1 or 3 idea. One thing on this page which I do need to improve on is that there's a lot of dead space. By that I mean here, here, here and here. By dead space I'm just on about the white area. There's too much of it. I just don't like it. It's not right. It needs to be improved. Again, collage. I think that's the solution. I should have just done that. It would have been a good place to advertise my accessories. But, God. Grr. Now, moving on to my masthead. This gives me more of a gist of the introductory paragraph rather than my masthead. So I feel as though I would change that to be my introductory thing and then come up with a different title. It just doesn't fit right. I'm not sure what's about it, but we'll come back to that. So, yeah, so as I've mentioned before, the black background, sorry about that, the black background pages are my favourite ones, and I feel as though it'd look a lot better on a black background, although I'm not sure if it would take the attention away. I don't think it would, but and yeah, just same thing about the name tag and the date, not the date, the issue, website and page numbers need to be a lot larger. Moving on to the next one. This one was my trial one for my simple double page. I actually really like them. I really, really like them. Only issue is that for my image, which I chose, I tried a new technique. So instead of using, I think it's just a normal cutout thing, we used a lasso technique to cut this one out. It's meant to give it a lighter feathery touch and easier to cut out hair. I don't think it worked on the black background, purely because you can see it looks way too feathered, which isn't great. It's definitely worth using again, just I've got to play around with that bit, but I really like that, how it's done that to the image. I also feel as though one of the main things why I wanted to use this in between my main article was that it breaks up that long text. And it's nice just to have a few pages which are quite simple, not over the top. And yeah, I think that that adds a little bit more of a variety and everything. As I said, I need to work out on that feathering technique and the lasso one. I think it's definitely worth it though, because if before I was talking about the one with Becca, we're gonna get it there if we can. Her hair here, it really bugged me, and this technique could solve that if I get it right. But it's just come down to practice that, which we'll get eventually. I think for this page, unlike all the others, I need to increase my name tag at the top, just because it's quite an empty page and I feel as though it can be more imposing on this one, which is fair enough. Moving on to the pull quote, I'm really happy with this. I'm happy that it's that curly font. I'm happy of the size, the positioning as well. I feel as though because her eyes are also looking in that direction, it just made sense for it to go there, because then there's a double reason why the audience would look in that. There's a double reason why the audience would look in that direction rather than the other one. And again, just about the numbers on website, I need to increase them. Moving on to my final double page, there is, first of all, overwhelming amount of text. It is insane. This is when I'm coming back to my 3 pull quotes, because these 2 are great here, but it needs one up the top, in the middle somewhere. And I think the idea of one image is nice. I've cut this one out really nicely actually, but there's a bit of dead space here which could do with a collage. Maybe of the top or something like that, or accessories, shoes, haven't mentioned them in a while. Something like that. On this page, unlike all the others, I wanted to go against codes and conventions for my masthead. So as you can see, this one isn't in the conventional place, and it could also be interpreted as the pull quote. So I wanted it to have that multi-function polysemic. God, that's bad, I've forgotten already. Polysemic, I think that is. Yeah. Anyway, back to it. Polysemic meaning. I also think it's nice that I've used the colour scheme. It just brings all the things back and it makes it all tag together. For the name tag, I just need that background on it. It needs that. And I need to increase the name and, not the name, the article numbers and all of them, because it's just too small. You can't even see it really. You just see the little squiggles. And I've got pretty good eyesight and I can't really read it, which is not a good thing. I feel as though it would be even better on a black background. That's one thing which I have picked up throughout all of this, that I need to do my black background, which I'm fine with, if I'm honest. I think it may spoil some of the impact, but overall I think it's pretty good, and that it all works pretty well, and that I just have to change the words, the article words by the way, from black to white. All the rest of it would be fine. As we can see on the other pages, the pink, purple stands out beautifully. Probably better than on the white, if I'm honest. So that's all my double pages, which I actually did on my official draft. If I go back onto my strange collage of pictures so far, I think that's everything. One thing which I do want to do is a back cover. So on this, I'm thinking that I will have my website again just to summarise and all of that. I will probably have a few simple information and maybe an advert for my favourite place or something. But all the adverts which I want to include in my magazine, including the images or the double pages if I do them at the front before the contents, in between the title, the front cover I mean, all of them are going to be related to my designer features list on my contents page. Yeah, so I know that was a long one, but that is a summary and a bit of detail and everything like that about my drafting page, what's going through my head, what I'm actually doing, and how it will all come together. It will all come together eventually.